Did you know that India's war on was actually a targeted geopolitical hit job? Think about it. Why is alcohol legally pushed by states while a thousands of years old traditional plant is criminalized? To understand the truth, let's look at the facts and go back to 1947.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. A moment comes, which comes but rarely in history, when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends, and when the soul of a nation, long suppressed, finds utterance. It is fitting that at this solemn moment we take the pledge of dedication to the service of India and her people and to the still larger cause of humanity.
जब इंडिया को ब्रिटिश रूल से आज़ादी मिली, the country inherited a highly structured state-regulated system for cannabis distribution. पूरे देश में आज की तरह कोई chaotic illegal trade नहीं था. Cannabis variants, specifically ganja and bhang, were sold in state-licensed, tax-paying shops. Individual states का excise department in retail licenses को strictly manage करता था. इससे public infrastructure के लिए एक consistent clean revenue generate होता था, while explicitly preventing unregulated consumption. हमारी अर्ली इंडियन गवर्नमेंट इस प्लांट को किसी सोशल इविल या ड्रग मेनेस की तरह नहीं देखती थी. फॉर आवर नेशन इट वाज अ डोमेस्टिक एग्रीकल्चरल एसेट. हमने कैनबिस को हमेशा हमारे एंशिएंट आयुर्वेदिक मेडिकल टेक्स्ट बुक्स, ट्रेडिशनल फार्मिंग इकोनॉमिक्स और स्पिरिचुअल यूटिलिटी के लेंस से देखा था. While the West associated the plant with social rebellion, the Indian state recognized it as a deeply rooted socio-cultural norm. एक ऐसा norm जिससे alcohol के मुकाबले negligible criminal disruption होता था. हम पर ये blanket prohibition ज़बरदस्ती थोपा गया है. But how did the trapdoor close on us? Let's step into chapter 2.
At the dawn of history, India started on her unending quest, and trackless centuries are filled with her striving and the grandeur of her successes and her failures. Through good and ill fortune alike, she has never lost sight of that quest or forgotten the ideals which gave her strength. We end today a period of ill fortune, and India discovers herself again.
So, how did the trapdoor actually open? The structural pivot occurred between 1960 and 1961. At this time, America was dealing with intense internal political shifts. Enter Harry Anslinger, the chief of the US Federal Bureau of Narcotics. He wanted to make his domestic anti-cannabis laws a global standard. To pull this off, the US organized a massive international conference in New York that spearheaded the creation of the 1961 United Nations Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. The explicit US agenda was unyielding. They demanded that cannabis be classified as a Schedule 4 drug, the most dangerous category, alongside hard synthetic opioids like heroin. They wanted every single member nation to outlaw production, possession, and casual trade completely. But India didn't just back down. Our delegation fiercely and aggressively resisted this pressure during the 1960 and 1961 convention debates. India fought back with excessive historical and medical data, arguing that a total ban was culturally and socio-economically impossible for the subcontinent. They demonstrated that cannabis had been used safely in India since the compilation of the Atharvaveda around 1500 BCE, that bhang was inherently linked to Hindu religious festivals like Mahashivratri and Holi, and ganja was deeply embedded in rural Ayurvedic medicine. Because India and Morocco refused to back down, a hard geopolitical compromise was struck. The UN was forced to make a massive exception. They granted India a strict 25-year grace period to completely phase out all non-medical cannabis use entirely. The clock started ticking right here.
Freedom and power bring responsibility. That responsibility rests upon this assembly, a sovereign body representing the sovereign people of India. Before the birth of freedom, we have endured all the pains of labor, and our hearts are heavy with the memory of this sorrow. Some of those pains continue even now. Nevertheless, the past is over, and it is the future that beckons to us now. That future is not one of ease or resting, but of incessant striving, so that we might fulfill the pledges we have so often taken and the one we shall take today. The service of India means the service of the millions who suffer. It means the ending of poverty and ignorance and disease and inequality of opportunity. The ambition of the greatest man of our generation has been to wipe every tear from every eye. That may be beyond us, but so long as there are tears and suffering, so long our work will not be over. And so we have to labor and to work hard to give reality to our dreams.
Apartheid hidden financial warfare. As the 25-year countdown ticked away, India intentionally dragged its feet for the next 2 decades. State governments completely ignored Western panic, continuing to issue excise licenses and collect local tax. But during the 1970s and 1980s, the US escalated pressure through 2 distinct hidden mechanisms. First, the Public Law 480, Food for Peace leverage. In 1971, President Richard Nixon officially declared the global war on drugs, defining drug abuse as public enemy number 1. The US began weaponizing foreign aid, military support, and trade access. Concurrently, during periods of severe food shortages, India relied heavily on the US Public Law 480, PL 480 program for vital grain shipments. The US routinely used this agriculture and structural dependency as invisible diplomatic leverage, threatening to cut ties if India refused to enforce prohibition. Second, the rise of global pharmaceutical cartels. In the late 1970s, the Western pharmaceutical companies and lobbies were expanding rapidly, heavily patenting synthetic painkillers, sedatives, and psychiatric medications. Cheap, locally grown natural remedies like cannabis were direct, completely unpatentable competitors to these high-margin synthesized medications. Forcing developing countries to pass strict anti-narcotic law effectively wiped out traditional herbal competition, opening up a massive captive consumer market for modern pharmaceutical corporations. Despite this massive multi-layer external pressure, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi maintained a fierce independent, non-aligned foreign policy stance. She shielded India's domestic agricultural structures and traditional farming economics from bowing completely to Western demands through the late 1970s and early 1980s. But she was the only wall standing between us and the trap. By the time 1985 arrived, India's clock had completely run out. The 25-year grace period granted by the United Nations in 1961 was set to expire explicitly in 1986. The geopolitical environment altered completely by the late 1984 and 1985, making it impossible for India to resist any longer due to two major factors. First, a vulnerable leadership. Following the tragic assassination of Indira Gandhi in late 1984, a young, politically vulnerable Rajiv Gandhi assumed the role of Prime Minister in 1985 with very little geopolitical experience. Second, the Reagan ultimatum. Simultaneously, the US administration under Ronald Reagan hyper-escalated the global drug enforcement campaign, launching a multi-billion-dollar international war on drugs. The US Congress passed strict compliance laws that allows Washington to directly cut off foreign aid, block critical World Bank loans, and slap massive trade sanctions on any developing countries that did not actively criminalize narcotics within their borders. Trapped between the impending 1986 United Nations Treaty deadline and the immediate threat of severe American economic isolation, Rajiv Gandhi's administration capitulated. In September 1985, the government rushed the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances or NDPS Act through Parliament. The law criminalized ganja completely overnight, replacing centuries of state-supervised horizontal trade and a thousands of years old traditional plant economy with an immediate criminal black market to appease Western foreign policy. But here is the ultimate proof that this law was never about public health. The Indian lawmakers left behind a massive internal contradiction during the drafting process. Understanding that completely banning bhang would trigger immediate widespread religious and public riots across the country, they meticulously exploited the biological definition of the plant. They structured Section 2 of 3 of the NDPS Act to define ganja exclusively as flowering or fruiting tops of the cannabis plant. By intentionally omitting the detached leaves and seeds from this definition, they ensured that traditional bhang remained outside the purview of central NDPS criminalization, leaving its regulation entirely up to individual state excise laws. This created massive structural hypocrisy observed today. The state permits the sale of the low potency leaf in government shops, but places a strict non-bailable ban on the high potency flower from the exact same plant. This is a direct relic of Western geopolitical pressure designed to destroy domestic competition. This isn't about modern drug control. This is a forensic historical expose on how India's traditional agricultural autonomy was systematically hijacked by the mid-century's Western geopolitics. I'll see you next time.